One rainy night in 2017, a trucker named Joe drove along Highway 50 in Nevada. It was late, and the road was empty. Suddenly, his headlights caught a girl in a white dress standing by the road, soaking wet. Joe stopped his truck, worried she was lost. "Need a ride?" he asked. She nodded and climbed into the cab. Her name was Emily, and she said she needed to get to the next town. Rain slows, eerie quiet. Joe drove, but the girl was too quiet. When he looked over to check on her, the seat was empty. His heart raced. The doors were locked, and the windows were up. At a truck stop, Joe told other drivers. An old man said, "That's Emily. She died in a car crash on that road 20 years ago. She still asks for rides." Thunder rumbles. Rain gets louder. Joe never stopped for hitchhikers again. In 2019, a trucker named Sarah parked at a rest stop in Texas. It was 2 a.m., and everything was dark and quiet. The rain was falling hard, and she was tired after a long drive. She leaned back in her seat and started to close her eyes. Then, she heard something strange. It sounded like a dog howling, but it was deeper, louder, almost human. She opened her eyes and looked out the window. A man was standing outside, just a few feet away from her truck. He wasn't moving, just standing there, staring. His mouth was wide open, and he was howling. Sarah's hand shook as she reached to lock the doors. The man didn't stop. He kept howling, louder, longer. His eyes glowed when her headlights hit him. Then he stepped closer and scratched the window. His nails dragged across the glass slowly, like he wanted to scare her. Sarah started her truck as fast as she could. The man chased her as she pulled away, running fast, barefoot in the rain. Then, suddenly, he was gone. Later that night, she stopped at a gas station and told another trucker. He just nodded and said, "That's the Howling Man. He shows up at that rest stop sometimes. Nobody knows who he is." Sarah never parked there again, and she never forgot that face. One stormy night in 2020, a trucker named Mike was driving through Ohio. The rain was heavy, and thunder shook the sky. It was hard to see the road, but he kept going. As he came up to a narrow bridge, he saw something strange. A man was standing in the middle of the bridge. He was wearing a clown costume and holding a red balloon. Mike slowed down. He honked his horn, but the clown didn't move. He just stood there, smiling. His smile was too wide, too wrong. Mike felt cold all over. He didn't want to get closer, but he couldn't turn around. As the truck crept forward, the clown raised his hand and slowly waved. Then, right in front of Mike's eyes, the clown jumped off the bridge, gone in an instant. Mike slammed on the brakes and ran out of the truck. He looked over the side of the bridge. There was no one, no splash, no balloon. At a nearby diner, Mike told a few locals what he saw. One man said, "A clown from a traveling circus drowned near that bridge years ago. Some say he still shows up during storms." Mike never took that road again, and he never looked at clowns the same way. In 2021, a trucker named Tom stopped at a quiet rest area in Illinois. It was late at night. The sky was clear, and the stars were out. Beside the parking lot was a wide cornfield, dark and still. Tom parked his truck and turned off the engine. He sat for a moment, just looking out at the field. That's when he saw it. A tall, black shadow was standing in the corn. It looked like a person, but it was too thin, and it wasn't moving. Tom stared at it. The shadow stared back. At least it felt like it did. He turned on his headlights, hoping to see more clearly, and then the shadow moved. Fast. It jerked forward, stepping out of the corn, straight toward his truck. Tom's heart raced. He locked his doors and held his breath. The shadow stopped just outside his window. He couldn't see a face, only darkness. Then, just like that, it was gone. No footsteps, no sound, nothing. Shaking, Tom started his truck and drove away. The next day, he told other drivers about what he saw. One said, "Yeah, that shadow's been out there for years, always watching from the corn." Since that night, Tom never parks near cornfields, and he never forgets those eyes, or whatever was hiding in the dark. In 2018, a trucker named Dave was driving through Kentucky late at night. He pulled into a quiet way station to take a short break. The place looked empty. No other trucks. No lights except his own. As Dave stepped out of his truck, he saw something strange. Near some old train tracks behind the station, an old man was walking slowly, holding a lantern. The light flickered as the man moved. He wore a long coat and an old-style cap. Dave called out, "Hey, are you okay?" But the man didn't answer. He just kept walking, then disappeared into the darkness. Dave stood there, confused. He walked into the way station and told the worker inside. The worker didn't seem surprised. He pulled out an old photo from a drawer, a black and white picture of train workers from the 1940s. Dave looked closely and felt a chill. The man with the lantern was in the picture. The worker said he died in a train accident right near here. Some truckers say they still see him walking with his lantern, like he's still on the job. Dave left that station fast, and he never stopped there again. Now, every time he sees train tracks at night, he checks twice for that flickering light. In 2022, a trucker named Alex was driving through the desert in Arizona. It was after midnight, and the road was quiet and dark. No towns, no lights, just empty land on both sides. Suddenly, something hit his windshield, hard. It made a loud bang, like a bird or maybe a rock. Alex pulled over, thinking it was nothing serious. But when he stepped out and looked around, he saw something strange on the road. It wasn't a bird. It wasn't an animal. It was a creature. It had wings like a giant bat. Its eyes were glowing red, and it was looking straight at him. The thing hissed, then opened its wings and flew into the sky. Alex froze. He had never seen anything like it. He looked back at his truck. There was a huge dent in the hood, shaped like wings. Later that night, at a truck stop, he told some other drivers what he saw. One of them said, "People talk about a flying monster out here. Some say it's a demon. Others think it's not from this world." Alex didn't sleep that night, and now, whenever he drives through the desert, he keeps a flashlight next to him, because sometimes things don't stay in the sky. Story 7. The Laughing Woman. In 2023, a trucker named Kim was driving through Oregon. Late at night, she stopped at a small rest area. It was cold and foggy, the kind of fog that makes it hard to see anything. She turned off her truck, leaned back in her seat, and closed her eyes. Then she heard something. A woman crying, soft at first, but close. Kim opened her window a little and called out, "Are you okay?" The crying stopped. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, the laugh started. It was loud, too loud, and it was coming from all around her. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was high-pitched and twisted, like someone laughing and screaming at the same time. Kim turned the key, but the truck wouldn't start. The laugh got louder. It felt like someone was right outside the door. She closed her eyes, trying not to panic. Then suddenly, silence. The fog began to lift. Her truck engine turned on by itself. Kim drove off fast, not looking back. At the next truck stop, she told her story. Another driver nodded and said, "Yeah, that rest area is haunted. They say a woman died there years ago." She laughs when someone stops alone. Now, Kim always checks the parking lot before she stops, and she never opens the window at night. Story 8. The Lady in Blue. In 2016, a trucker named Chris was driving along I-10 in California. It was a quiet night. No traffic, no lights, just miles of empty road. As he drove, his headlights lit up a figure ahead. It was a woman, wearing a long blue dress. She was walking on the side of the road, slowly, with her head down. There were no houses nearby, no cars. She looked out of place. Chris slowed down and rolled down his window. He was going to ask if she needed help, but the moment his lights hit her, she vanished. No sound, no trace, just gone. His heart pounded. He looked all around. She wasn't there. Later that night, on his way back through the same area, Chris saw her again. Same dress, same spot, same slow walk. But this time, he didn't stop. At a diner the next morning, Chris told a few other truckers what he saw. One of them said, "That's the lady in blue. She died in a car crash years ago. Some say she's still looking for a ride home." Now, Chris avoids that stretch of road whenever he can, and every time he sees someone walking at night, he keeps driving. Story 9. The Mirror Truck. In 2024, a trucker named Anna was driving through Montana. It was past midnight. The road was quiet, and the sky was dark. She was alone. As she glanced into her side mirror, she noticed another truck behind her. It looked exactly like hers. Same model, same color, same company logo. At first, she thought it was just a coincidence. She waved politely. The driver in the other truck waved back. But then, something strange happened. The face in the other truck's window was her own. Anna stared in shock. It wasn't a mirror. It was a real truck, and her face was driving it. She sped up. The other truck did the same. She changed lanes. So did it. She pulled over on the side of the road, her hands shaking. The other truck passed slowly. And when it did, the driver's seat was empty. No one was there. At the next truck stop, she asked if anyone had seen the truck. No one had, but an older driver said, "A woman died on this road last year. She drove a rig just like yours." Since that night, Anna doesn't drive that highway alone, and she never looks too long in her mirrors. Story 10. The Spider Road. In 2015, a trucker named Mark was driving through New Mexico. The sun had just set, and the sky was turning dark. He was deep in the countryside, far from any towns. As he came around a curve, he saw something strange on the road ahead. At first, it looked like dry leaves blowing in the wind. But as he got closer, he realized they weren't leaves. They were spiders, thousands of them, covering the entire road. Mark didn't have time to stop. His tires rolled over them with a sickening crunch. The truck slipped slightly. The road was slick with their bodies. He kept driving, his hands tied on the wheel. When he finally reached a gas station, his co-driver got out and screamed. Spider legs were sticking out from the tires. Some were still twitching. Locals at the station weren't surprised. They told him, spiders migrate across that stretch every few years. But lately, people say they're acting strange, like they know when someone's coming. Mark couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed him. Even weeks later, he swore he saw spiders in the corners of his cab. He never drives that road again, and he always checks his mirrors for crawling things.